All right, what's up, everybody? This is Andrew. I don't know if anyone's going to be popping on this early because I normally do it on Fridays, but I had some unforeseen things pop up, so we're going to do it today. So if no one is on during the live, that's a shame, but they'll be there for people to enjoy later. So who I have with me is Zee Durham, former Special Forces, 5th Group, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep, retired Master Sergeant, correct?
Correct.
All right. And also a fan of the BJJ, I believe it's the, I guess,
BJJ
Brazilian Jiu
or
Jitsu.
BJ.
Yeah, whatever. However you want to do it. I mean, this is a fun time. So, anyway, it's been a while, and I'm enjoying having you on. I'd say you and Carl, and then one other guy are my favorite people so far that I've had on. So,
Appreciate that.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, so let's just kind of talk about whatever. I mean, how have you been? How are things going with you and all that you got going on?
Oh, good, man. Good. Just training, staying consistent, trying to stay consistent anyway. That's always the goal. And then dealing with kids. I got one of my kids is about to go to college, my third kid to leave the house. And then two others are in high school. And then one just got their first job. So got that going on. Got power steering pump had to get replaced in a car, so had to mess with that shit with my buddy that works on cars.
What kind
So
of
just
car?
life shit.
Yeah, what?
A 2001 Ford Escape named Margaret.
Ah, okay. I
That's
actually
what
worked on
one of my kids drives it.
okay, I actually worked on Fords for a very short stint in between uh, Mercedes and Audi. So,
Oh, that's the hard stuff to work on, isn't it?
yeah, more
What I hear
complicated.
anyway.
Yeah, more complicated. It's hard to explain. At the end of the day, it's all cars, but the Germans definitely have a lot more difficulty in the
Yeah,
sense of just they don't make it easy as far as software and as far as information. As far as working on
right,
the car, it's not as hard, but more of understanding the layouts of everything is a whole lot more complex.
right.
So,
Yeah, they say
but
you own a car like that, you have to be prepared to maintain it, which is going to cost some money too. It's not as easy to maintain as some typical cars.
yeah, that's the funny thing is a lot of people, which I always find hilarious, they go, "Well, my Honda doesn't cost that much to do that repair." I'm like, "Really?" Like, I mean, I get it, but it's one of those things where you bought a Benz. I really don't have any sympathy for how much things cost because you should already kind of know, it's not going to be cheap. I mean,
Right.
the cost of making it in Germany is a lot higher because of petroleum. Um, let's see here. They're probably getting back at us for World War II. Um, let's see here. The labor it takes to do it. I mean, I don't know everything over there, but I just know it's a lot more expensive, which makes it even more expensive over here. So,
Yeah. When
but I
when I
mean,
have when I have conversations, stand by. When I have conversations with, still there?
yeah,
You with me? So when I have conversations with people
yep,
about like the cost of maintaining certain things, equipment or whatever, I think
yep.
about. I know I'm dating myself, but I don't know if you remember MC Hammer and how he went bankrupt and everything. They showed like a had like
Uh,
documentaries about his situation in the house that he lived in, this gaudy, huge thing. And from a dad's point of view, I'm like, man, like how much does it cost for the utilities for that bitch? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, and I know we're talking about cars, but people don't understand that hey, to maintain that type car versus a regular car that you're looking at specialists a lot of times if not everybody can work on those.
yeah.
It takes takes knowing your way around it a little bit, like you're talking about. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it does.
just getting that stuff, you got to pay for it to keep it up.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, unlike American manufacturers, where you have an engine guy and a transmission guy, and Germans require their technicians to be able to work on everything from bumper to bumper. So I'm doing upholstery, I'm doing engine work, I'm doing transmission work, I'm doing suspension, I'm doing not paint, but like replacing doors if needed. Like I'm doing a whole lot of stuff, and I'm expected to know everything about it.
Right.
Um,
So they want you to be a
Unfortunately,
little
though,
more intimate with the vehicle.
yeah, definitely. And although Ford diesel techs still make a whole lot more than I do, I mean that's something in and of its own. So, but
Yeah, my buddy that
anyway,
just left and helped me with that power steering pump is a diesel mechanic.
okay, with Ford.
He worked for Ford, but it wasn't Ford specifically. He
Oh,
worked
okay.
for a Ford dealership and worked on their diesels. And I think he's going to the city now where he's going to work on trash trucks. But he still gets paid a whole lot just to be a diesel mechanic because, especially dealerships, like they don't have a lot of mechanics. I mean, I don't know what you've heard about dealerships, but it seems to be the word on the street that they're not the best
Well,
for
and
dealership mechanics.
yeah, and so I've been a dealership mechanic my whole time. Well, okay, there's a couple times I've been independent, and so from my experience, I could say the same thing about independent. Like they don't know what they're doing. I literally had a car, so I don't care to tell people where I work. I work at Mercedes in Music City. Okay,
Right.
um, and we have the best techs there. Anyone watching drives a Mercedes, take your car there. Um, and oh man, I just lost my train of thought. That was the weirdest thing ever. What were we talking about?
Talking about mechanics that are at dealerships
Oh
might
yeah,
not be the best sometimes.
yeah. And there's an independent shop that had something wrong with a car, and they end up sending it to the dealership by tow truck with some parts already taken apart and put in the passenger seat. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's relative. I mean, you have great dealer techs, you have great independent shop techs, you have horrible dealer techs, you have horrible independent shop techs. I mean,
And it
it's
just
like it's like military dudes that go become instructors, right? You have great instructors such as yourself and such as Carl, and then you have horrible instructors like I can't think of any off the top of my head. There's a lot out
you
there,
don't
and
have
I
to
know you
name
know
anybody.
some. Yeah, I mean, and it's and there's some great instructors that say really dumb things. Like Mike Glover has said some really dumb stuff that get you know him under fire a little bit. You know,
Yeah, I heard that.
so I mean it is what it is. But and then you
It'd be
got
like that sometimes.
guys. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna become an instructor for a time, and that ended up not panning out. But that's all right. And it's not because I wasn't qualified. It's I found out that in every industry there's politics, and not necessarily like Second Amendment or like whatever, but like politics within, like I'm sure in the NRA instructor world, there's politics amongst them, like, oh well, this guy does this and he doesn't do that right, and there's favoritism and all that kind of stuff. And that's how it kind of was at the range I was working at, and I was just like, well, you know, and I probably ruffled a
Yeah,
little
that
bit of
happens.
feathers anyway, but so so are you still doing anything with Carl, or are you completely on your own now?
Well, I was basically on my own when I was doing stuff with Carl. I just did stuff with him as well.
Right,
But
but I mean um like do you do anything with him at all anymore or no?
no, not really.
Okay.
I was too busy. Not we didn't have a falling out or anything. We just
Sure.
I was too busy, and he's starting to travel more, and I'm not going to travel. And
Yeah.
I think Emery is helping him out now, so I think they got it handled.
Yeah. Speaking of, the last time I had Carl on, those two were in the car, and we got to take me and the people on my live got to take a ride with him to go get ice cream in the sense
Oh
of
yeah.
virtually. And I'll tell you what, you warned me about Carl, and you were 100% right. Um, I think I
What did
got
I
maybe
say?
two.
I don't remember.
You said he will talk the whole time, and he basically did. I got like two questions in, and it was fine. I mean, he answered them, and Carl running on about something is not a bad thing. It's always something funny or it's always something knowledgeable.
Yeah.
So I'm not complaining one bit. But at the end, he goes, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. You barely got anything in. What other questions you got?" And I'm like, "Well, really not at this point."
Yeah,
So
he's lived a long time and he's done a lot of things. So he got a lot up in there in his head.
yeah, and also the phone connection was not that great, and I don't think he had his hearing aids in.
Ah, yeah,
So
that could be a problem.
yeah,
He
I
doesn't
think
hear
part of
that
the
well.
time, yeah, I think part of the time he doesn't hear me, but Um, it was what it is. What it is. Eventually, I'll have him on again whenever he's able to. But I have noticed he's been traveling a lot. Does Chad do anything with him anymore, or no?
Well, I think Chad's doing his own thing. He was he couldn't travel as much anymore. He was taking care of a home life, and I think last time I talked to him, he was doing some security stuff, maybe.
Oh, okay,
So I talk to him every now and then. I still talk to all of them. I
sure,
mean, they live about 30, 40 minutes away from me
yeah,
up in Kentucky. But
right.
yeah, I think he's still doing good. He's just not doing tactical rifleman stuff anymore.
Oh, okay, yeah. I noticed. I think Carl ended up having his son do all the producing and stuff for him now.
Yeah, Nicholas.
Yeah. Um. So, have you been catching the news lately, or have you been super busy?
I mean, I stay busy, but I watch the news. I catch all the big headlines anyway.
So I guess let's just throw this out there and get Z's perspective.
All right.
So what's up with all the Chinese balloons and UFOs and the government coming out on that? So I've been dying to see what you thought about it.
Uh, it's interesting, but I don't like I don't really. There's nothing that I don't that surprises me anymore. I should put it that way. I'm not surprised by that stuff. And whether it's Chinese or not, which I think they said it's confirmed, obviously. And I mean, that's the games that major nations have always played. Passive aggressive, Cold War type stuff where
Yeah,
you got plausible deniability with everything. So all you got to do is say, "Nah, we didn't mean it that way." And
yeah,
and I mean, especially nuclear power nations, like you can't. That's why it seems like we're walking on eggshells dealing with each other all the time. And people were like, "Well, you should do this and you should do that." And they don't understand how the world economy is tied into these great nations. They don't understand global politics. They don't understand how far major nations like ourselves are willing to go to keep peace because they
yeah,
know that without being a super cynic, like all the people that are in power know that it's better for them if everything stays peaceful and the money keeps flowing. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
Well, I mean, it's just kind of funny because that's getting attention. Possibly, it's aliens. All that stuff. With the Navy and all that stuff coming out. And then while that's getting all the news, all these train derailments and farms getting caught on fire and chicken coops being sterilized and all this other stuff, it's just kind of like is something big coming, or is it just the same old same old? We just notice it more. I
I think it's
mean,
more so. We still there? Break, break.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's a little weird connection there. I think it's so there's other things that came out, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm logical, and like there's other things that seem to be damning to the current administration and to the current people in power on various sides, and there's other things coming out in the news are becoming public or
yeah,
available to the public, and I think there's somewhat I don't want to stretch it so far and say, hey, there's been disasters caused to cause people to look the other direction, but there's definitely some coincidence, it seems, and things happening that would snatch headlines away from other things that current administration may not want you to pay a lot of attention to, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I'm just fucking guessing like anybody. I don't know shit about any fucking things. I'm just, and I'm biased, of course. But I do
Yeah.
think that other things where the current administration or where there's been bullshit conducted by our government, I think that needs to should snatch the headlines, right? And hopefully, I hope to God that there's no real conspiracy of people causing bullshit to happen to fucking redirect people's attention to save their
Yeah.
own asses. But I don't put it past anybody.
Yeah, and I'm a big person on documentation, and the guys I usually have on the show, which they weren't able to make it tonight, and it's also not on the normal day because we normally have people watching at this time, so we're just kind of chilling right now, but that's fine. People watch it later. Uh,
No problem.
yeah, but it's one of the things where more and more I'm seeing that I think things are done on purpose. Like there's actual I don't remember if there was documentation to prove this, but there's good reason to believe that the Biden administration bombed that Nord Stream pipeline.
Oh yeah, I seen something came out about that where they were leaning that way, right?
Yeah, and it kind of makes you think like, why would the government do that, right? But also, it's one of those things where people need to change their culture on everything when it comes to the Constitution in this country. Like people always say, like, hey, we're fighting for democracy. We're a democratic republic. No, we're not. We're a constitutional republic. There's a big difference. And people say there's not. And yes, they are similar, but the only thing that's really democratic is election day,
Mm.
right? Everything else is a constitutional republic. And we're so far from the original constitution that it's like we might as well throw it away. The only thing that's really keeping everything in check is um, the fact that it is there, that they know that they can't just crumble it up in front of us. But
Right.
I mean, I think there's a huge culture shift, even in the gun industry. I think there needs to be a huge culture shift, and I don't think anyone's. I mean, some people are talking about it, but like we need to, as men, instead of just talking about the coolest gear, the coolest guns, and all that stuff, which all that stuff is fine. I mean, I've had some of the nicest stuff. I've had, whenever I spend money on gun stuff, unfortunately I spend a lot of money. But it's one of those things where we need to start talking about, what really being a man is, chivalry, talking about protecting our children from the attacks. There's all kinds of attacks on children as far as, abortion, and as far as, all these like sexualizing children. It's horribly disgusting. And no one's talking about that. In the gun industry, we claim to be the protectors, but yet we're not protecting anyone, right? We're just talking about we're talking about the stuff, that people, feel comfortable, and we're not, it's like we're not willing to step on toes a little bit, you know, to really make a change, right? Like it's one of those things, like for instance, in the inner city, like in Chicago, nothing changes because everyone likes the status quo. It's easy. A lot of them are on food stamps. No one wants to do the hard thing and admit that we're the problem, right?
Mm.
Chicago is the way it is because of the people that live there, not because of their skin color, but because of the fact that they have been lied to and they have let themselves be put in that situation. Same thing in the gun industry. We let everybody run over us, and instead of uniting together, we bicker and complain about the dumbest things ever, like, oh, he does this, he does that, whatever. It's like, what does that matter, right? It doesn't
Right.
matter. So that's kind of how I see it. And I
Well,
think,
something's been so, it's like it reminds me of like an analogy about cancer. Like once it's spread and got its roots so far, like there's not much you can do. Like essentially, things got to die off, and then you got to restart from new. And I think I'm not saying we need to to having a fall of our society, but that's not what I'm hoping for. But I feel like certain cultures are so rooted, and it's going to take so long for things to change, or because things have gotten so uh, crooked along the way. Like there's no easy way going about of resetting or correcting systems or correcting the society in the state it's in. Like it's just no easy way. There's no like progressive, smoothing of the system. It's it's past that point. There's not like you make a few things here and there, and then plus, without sounding like some kind of anarchist or whatever, like I do believe that the government is pretty much a self-leaking ice cream cone at this point, where it's the government's there for the government's sake, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously they do things like protect us from other nations. That's what the federal government's supposed to do, like to help us with that global politics.
Right.
And but we're so far removed from that, basically because people were weak, because we are humans, and humans are built just like any other animal. We're built to seek the path of least resistance. We like it. We like convenience. It's in us. It's instinctual. So when people start giving you things, especially even if it's in the long term, it's bad for you. In the near term, you you fall into that trap. I mean, we do that in our everyday lives at a lower level. Like you fall into the trap of the convenience of that food at that store and that money that you could be saving, but you're spending extra because you want it now and you want it cooked for you or whatever. I mean, that's just typical behavior of humans. And it's the same with our interaction with the government. Like the more the government does for you, the more you don't want to change that, or you don't want to burn the house down to save the neighborhood necessarily, right?
Yeah.
You want to preserve it as long as possible. Sorry, there's a helicopter flying by. I
No, that's all
don't
right.
know if you can hear that.
I roughly know where you are, so I can understand that.
Yeah, I'm near the base, so.
Yeah.
And I'm in my
Um.
garage too right now, so you can hear them coming over all the time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's like we're in a rock and a hard place right now as a nation, which a lot of people are. A lot of progressive first world nations, if you call them that, like they're in a rock and a hard place because you're not going to change anything, especially here. We just got it too easy, man. It's not me bitching. It's just me understanding human nature. I'm not mad about it. That's just the way it goes. Like we go the path of least resistance. We've got it so good that we don't have to worry about things that other people have to worry about, and therefore we can worry about all this other bullshit that's not that important. And at the highest levels in our country, I mean, something, a little off subject, but still on subject. Something that I heard the other day on the internet somewhere. Maybe it was social media. They were talking about, do you understand the difference between a million and a billion? Right? I don't know if you've seen that. So they use the comparison of time, right? So they said a million seconds is equal to 11 days.
Hmm.
Have you heard this?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. So he said a million seconds is equal to 11 days. And then they asked whoever they were talking to, they said, what do you think a billion seconds is equal to? And that person said, oh, maybe it was. It got to be months or something. He's like 33 years. So the
Yeah.
difference between a million, so that gives you like a gauge to understand the difference in a billion versus a million, right? And we
Yeah.
consider as the layman like a millionaire, $1 million. That's a whole hell of a lot to us, right? Becoming smaller relatively
Yeah.
in this day and age. But he said 11 days versus 33 years. So that tells you the gap between a million and a billion. And then you talk about people that are billionaires, that all the conspiracy theorists or people on the internet say these guys control uh, global politics and politics in our nation and whatnot. And it's
I mean, they're
like,
not wrong.
they're not, well, to think about it in that way, the comparison between million and a billion, I
Yeah.
guess we've gotten conditioned to think billionaires are just a regular old thing. Like, no, man, if you're a billionaire, like you've got to have so much power. That's like, you know, off the cuff, me saying, like, if I gave you $1, like, here, buddy, here's $1. That's no big deal to me. $1. That's like
Yeah.
$100,000 to a billionaire, right? He can give you $100,000. That's no big deal to him. So if he has to give up hundreds of thousands of dollars to get his way or
Yeah.
to persuade people to do things, and that benefits him and not necessarily our nation in the long run, but it benefits him, he and them and theirs, like why wouldn't they do that, right? And who's going to turn it down? Like if you value hundreds of thousands of dollars, which most people do,
Yeah.
like how would you not be subject to them swaying you to do things? So I definitely think there's something to billionaires having their say so, obviously,
Yeah, as far as a lot of your
which corrupts
views,
our country.
yeah, as far as a lot of your views on what we've been talking about just now, would you say that if you were not in the army and not, in the special forces where, you got to see two different perspectives? Because I would say, would you say it's fair to say that special forces was very different than, being in regular infantry, right? Very different. Or would you
Yeah.
say they're the same?
Well, as far as tactics goes for basic military operations, it's the same because you use a lot of infantry tactics for stuff, and you teach a lot of that. But as far as the layers of your operation go, we were definitely paying more attention to the bigger picture versus just what's in front of our face, you know?
Would you say that that's influenced how you view things outside of the military? Would you say that your opinions would be the same, or would they be different if you had not
Mm,
been in the military, or if you had not been in special forces?
they'd probably be a little different. I'd be a little more ignorant to certain things, right? Because I just didn't understand from the outside looking into the military. People look at it, take it for face value a lot of times, and I was looking more of a beneath the surface level, right? Which we got to
Yeah.
think about. That's our strategy. I mean, that's if you pay attention to people that study war and history and study, major operations and the thought and planning and the government strategy behind all that, they would understand probably. But I didn't. I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for me being in the military, probably, and building my interest on that. So yeah, I'd be less informed. I'd be more ignorant, and I probably wouldn't give a shit so much about it. But I know that things are deeper than what the surface tells you. You know.
Now here's another question. As far as it's related to the military, but not quite related to that, or I guess it could be. But as far as when you were in the military versus how the military is now, because someone once told me that the military has always been woke. We just never knew it. Would you say that's fair, not fair, or has it gotten worse? Because that famous general that made that really dumb comment about, critical race theory and all that stuff, and how he'd like to know more. And
Mm.
people are calling to have his SF tab removed and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know if it was woke per se, like the whole time. I don't know if that was the whole military. I know that in the combat arms, specifically the infantry and special forces that I was a part of, like there was definitely there was a subculture outside of the regular military culture, right? They were considered different. You were more brainwashed, if you will, to think about combat stuff, right? And you're more simple minded because we were worried about being tough and fighting, so to speak. And we didn't have to be, we wasn't so concerned with equal opportunity as as regulations stated, right?
Yeah,
And we wasn't so concerned. There was hazing allowed, and I know hazing can be bad, and it's not. There's definitely people who've gone too far with that stuff, but
sure.
it was like a rite of passage, considered, to be a part of the crew, and people took it wrong. Obviously humans fuck up things when we go too
Yeah,
far with things, but it was just a different subculture and way I was raised, and it didn't seem so woke to me. But that being said, I understand that the organization as a whole, the military and any government organization that I know of, and major organizations that are on the forefront of the media and technology, like they're going to be woke. They're going to do whatever the fucking people want, man. Like they're swayed by the masses, and that's just the way it is. I don't agree with it, especially concerning the military, but they're operating just as a regular private organization where, hey, we want people to like us. We want to keep our recruiting numbers up, which they're way down right now, is what I've read and understand. And so we want to appeal to the masses, and appealing to the masses nowadays is fucking political correct, be woke, for what most people think anyway, right? So I don't
Yeah.
think it's always been that way, especially not in my area that I was in. But I could see how it could be like that. I remember back in the day, like it used to be "don't ask, don't tell" as far as homosexuality in the military,
Yeah.
and that was a pretty good policy. That was like some officer's way of getting around having to deal with that shit, which was probably genius. He kind of took
Yeah.
the heat off himself, and at the same time didn't fucking isolate or ostracize homosexual people, even though they couldn't say nothing. I guess they can do whatever they want in their personal life, but I
Yeah.
never seen a problem with that until, I mean, I know at Fort Campbell they had like a big issue. They even made movies about it, about a kid that was considered homosexual got beat by a group of guys at one of the infantry brigades.
They made a
The
movie
five,
about it?
yeah, they got a whole movie about it. The
Like a
502nd.
Hollywood production, or was it like a
Well, it wasn't at
base?
the movie theater. It was like maybe on Netflix or some shit like that.
Oh, okay. So it's like an independent film or something.
Yeah, it was not. I mean, it wasn't like C-rated movie, but it was low budget. Not what like Hollywood.
Yeah. All right, I got one
Oh,
more question
go
before
ahead.
we get into. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I got one more question before we get into some fun stuff because I don't want as much as people would love to hear about the drama of life. Sometimes you got to talk about positive stuff, right?
Of course.
Um, so if let's say you were before the government and they said whatever opinion or like you can give you can make a law or you could change something that's currently in place, what would Z change?
Mm,
And it could be military related, it could be civilian, it could be everybody could you know
mm.
make fun of people with orange shirts. I mean, whatever you want. I mean,
I
make
guess
National Belt Fed Chad Booty Day.
uh, if I could make a law or change a law, on a serious note, I'd probably do like I heard that law in Texas where the law of unarmed combat or something like that, where you could challenge somebody and if both of y'all agree to it, you could fight,
Uh-huh.
you know, to 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 basically resolve whatever issues you have with each other right then and there.
Sure.
I kind of like that. Um, I I think I don't know how good it would go over because nowadays people are so emotional. Not emotional, everybody's emotional, but they're just emotionally immature to
Sure.
the degree that they can't handle, being embarrassed, can't handle public scrutiny, can't handle any of that shit. So now people want to shoot each other and show you how much of a man they are, and that's the easy path
Mm-hmm.
versus actually putting in the work to learn humility and getting your ass beat and putting in years of work of honing your craft to be able to protect yourself at various levels. And I think, I mean, Mickey Shook, carry trainer, just posted that video, and a lot of other people post about that crazy guy on the airplane, and he stabbed somebody with a broken spoon or something like that. And I made a joke about it and made a post or whatever, talking
What?
about I was teaching airplane traveling,
Oh,
grappling. Anyway, so like
yeah.
stuff like that, I feel like if that was allowed more, like you're allowing our society to be stronger because we'd be more prepared for that type of stuff
Yeah.
instead of relying on someone else to protect you all the time. Get back to the roots of protect your fucking self. I don't care what amenities we have. I don't care what the government, local government provides to us as far as protection and safety. Like it should always be your responsibility first, man. And I think, and that's not just tough guy talk. That's just I see how it is, and I see how it can go wrong. You might could go your whole life. Like I got a buddy of mine that's very different from me if people looked at the outside of what we like and what we do. But he's also his insight is very valuable to me. And he was telling me the other day he could count on one hand like how many violent things he's seen up close in real life. Like one or two times he's been around violence, and that's not just him in violence, like seeing violence or seeing like parents fighting or whatever, anything like that. And it was hard to believe. Like I was like, well, I've been around violence all my life, you know, unhealthy type violence. And I was like, just because your life is like that, though, that doesn't mean. I feel like that's not the common thing, right? He's the exception. Um, and he was telling me he felt like I was the exception to the guys that are like me, that I don't feel like I need to kill everybody and I don't hate anybody. He's like, you're the exception to that rule, the guys with guns that do all this stuff. And I'm like, well, maybe, but he's an exception to the rule when it comes to people that have never been around violence. Um, they don't understand that it's going to happen. Maybe you get away with it for a long time, but you don't choose. And if people were more, I guess, more intelligent, less ignorant, more exposed to these things, and knew that there could be consequences physically, right? Which is at the root of us. That's physical violence is what mankind is built from, really,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, you need to have consequences for your actions. You need to be able to stand up for yourself, and the more you would be ready for that, the more it would expose you to your limitations as a person, and the more you would have insight into things and better understand your emotions. You probably could check yourself a little sooner because there would be consequences of things. And I feel like society in whole would benefit from that, because you got to be responsible for you, right?
Yeah.
I don't rely on you. I don't rely on you not breaking the law. I don't say, well, there's a law that says you can't do that, so you can't do that. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. What? There's no piece of paper in front of me that protects me,
Yeah.
right? Legal, civil, whatever, right? There's nothing there. So yeah, unarmed, the law, and I forget maybe you know it better than me, but the law of unarmed combat, or where you can agree to fight each other. I think that would be. I think that
I,
should be make that great again.
I honestly don't know, but I think dueling's still legal. I just think nobody knows about it. Or maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to ask Doug.
Maybe in certain states. I know there's some weird laws in various states, right?
I have a feeling it's gonna be one of those really liberal states where it's like it's still legal to like duel to the death. Because
Right.
like California, I guess has the only state militia that uses live ammunition, I guess, during training.
For real?
Yeah. I was like, what?
Seems ironic, huh?
Yeah, it does. Um,
I heard
but
they use the homeless people there for live targets. Is
that
that
and
true?
also yeah, that and um I guess I don't know. I was trying to think of a joke, but I can't think of one off the fly. Now context for people for what I said earlier, because I was gonna bring this up is um shoot, what was I gonna say? I don't know, my mind left. Anyway, my brain's been doing that lately. I don't know if you've ever had that where like you're in the
Oh
middle
yeah,
of thought and like you lose it, you know.
more often than I like.
Yeah. Anyway, so here's a fun question. Because on this channel you could be, well, I don't know if I should say it just because YouTube has already axed one of my well, we won't be talking about freedom or love of country, so maybe we'll be all right. If you and Carl battled to the death, who would win?
Well, I'm younger and bigger as far as total mass, probably. But if I was gonna beat Carl, I'd have to like get a hold of him and
Yeah.
surprise him, probably. Like, but if I gave Carl time to prepare, and he knew I was hunting him, I feel like he would probably outmaneuver me and out strategy me, probably. And plus, he's a good sniper, right? So he'll probably sit back and shoot me before I even got close enough.
Yeah. Wasn't he like your boss at one point in fifth group?
Yeah, he was my sergeant major. He was in charge of our company.
Yeah. I think I remember him saying that in an interview he had with shoot, what was his name? Ryan something. I think he flew little birds or something in the army. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure he was sore. I think.
yeah, I don't know what interview, but
I
yeah,
don't know.
Carl's wily. I wouldn't. Uh, Carl's not somebody you want to fight.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't doubt it. And I'll ask him the same thing if whenever I get him on another live again. But so S12, how did that go?
S12.
Yeah, because
So
you had it a few months ago, didn't you?
no, we had it. Last one was, where is it? Next one's coming up in May.
Oh, maybe it hasn't happened yet. I was thinking,
Yeah, in May's coming. But the last one was like last November. Or maybe, we're not having one this May. We're going to have one in November. We're only going to do one this year, but we've been doing two for the last couple of years. The last one was in November. So it was good. And S12 is definitely a good time, man. Like it's getting better and better every time we do it. And lucky for me, I get to hang out with people that I don't get to see often that I have built relationships with. And it's just time to connect with them and do what we like to do to help make capable citizens, give people some insight on where they stand as far as their own capabilities so
yeah,
they can improve from there. But I mean, it's a 4 day packed long weekend of eating, working, getting up early, going to bed late, building relationships. Like it's one of the best things I've ever been a part of, really.
yeah. The way how you describe it, it almost seems like as if you're still doing the main mission of a Green Beret, right? Like you're eating with people, you're spending all day with them, and you're building a fighting force
For
in the
sure.
nation. So
For sure. And I mean, man, it's so weird that I used to frown upon that before I left the infantry and went to the special forces because they'd be like, well, you could go to the Rangers or you could go to CAG, Delta Force, and that's all about killing. That's all you got to do is go kill. And SF is all about, this other shit. And then sometimes they do some killing stuff.
yeah,
But when I got a part of it and, seeing what it was about more so, and I had a deeper understanding, like, that was the better mission for what's sustainable
yeah,
outside of the military. I think everything I learned as a Green Beret applies to my civilian life to some
I
degree. It ain't
mean,
like I got to be extra soldiery. It's
yeah,
just I build relationships. I learn to manipulate, whether it be for good or bad. I learn to use the environment around me. I learn to adapt. I learn to
yeah,
take care of myself because as a 12-man team, you just take care of yourself. There's no big unit there with you to take care of you. You got
yeah,
to do whatever. You got to cook, sweep, take the trash out, cut the grass, shoot the bad guy, give medical aid to the fucking guys, whatever. You got to do all that
yeah.
stuff. So
Did you
to
ever
me,
want to
it's
go
very,
Delta?
I think natural ambition inside of me wanted me to, but by the time that I got my wits about me in the SF and was doing what I felt like well, doing good at what my job was, it's kind of like my family was too far along, and I just was too long in the tooth to go do that.
Yeah,
But I mean, I think most guys that are ambitious like I was were thinking about it.
yeah. And from what I hear, I guess SF has gone more direct action anyway. Uh, I don't know how much of the details I could give, but from my understanding, they've gone more direct action, and I guess they've always, I guess, yeah. Um, Mac v Sog, I guess, I guess, has never been decommissioned, and
Right.
I guess they've been used more as the, uh, you know, infiltrating and all that stuff. I guess now. So
Well, there's so many missions that fall underneath our uh, what we consider operations for special forces. Right. There's foreign internal defense, and there's all the different ones, and I can't name them all right now. I should be able to, but direct action was always part of that. Right. It just depends. Like SF was It's probably so stressful in SF because you didn't have a singular mission that you just did all the time. Even if your team was dedicated as, hey, like within a company, you would have a team that's like, hey, this is our mobility team. Hey, this is our reconnaissance team. Hey, this is our mountain team, or this is our direct action team, or whatever the flavors
mhm,
were for the company and what teams they needed to specialize in stuff.
yeah,
But still, it depended. Like the theater of operation ebbed and flowed. The requirements ebbed and flowed. New commanders come in. new missions from JSOC. We want you here. We want you to do this. And then, I mean, I remember with my last couple of years when I was in, like we were learning how to work on oil platforms because we had to go to a place that had, it was part near the Gulf. So we had to figure out our own SOPs and tactics for taking down an oil platform in the middle of the Gulf with SEALs. They come from boats, we come from helicopters, and we both take it down. And that's kind of new to us. We're figuring it out. I mean, you still use the same old principles that we use in every kind of assault, but you had to accommodate for not you had to have certain ammo because you didn't want to blow yourself up while you're on the oil platform shooting at bad guys or whatever, and
Yeah.
different
Did they?
things we had to be aware of. So
Did the
you're
Navy
always
SEAls
bending
still?
and molding.
Yeah. Did the
Go
Navy
ahead.
SEAls still have their hair gel?
Yeah, I mean they always look good.
So
They're good looking
uh,
people.
a pal of mine in Colorado, whenever I was there, his name is Jimmy Graham, former Navy SEAL. Do you know who Jimmy Graham is?
I don't know that Jimmy Graham. All I know is the evangelist.
So Jimmy Graham was former Navy SEAL, former GRS. Actually, his team, he was over the guys in Benghazi.
Mm.
And he
Uh,
actually left Benghazi 3 weeks prior to the incident. He was telling me about it one time. But we're always shooting the breeze. But yeah, we're always I'm always cracking those jokes, and it's fun. So, but yeah,
they love it.
it's I guess also the new joke is that whenever you go in the SEALs, you get your agent for your new book deal or something like that. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
just a civilian, so I don't really have the place in making those jokes. But you know,
Well, a lot of it's generated. There are some people that step on their own dick and make themselves look stupid from
yeah,
all branches of the military. But I think, you know, most of it's a lot of hate. Like we want to talk shit to each other. I do it in good fun because I don't mind people making fun of me either. But there is a lot of hate because people, humans are the same people that occupy special operations in general. So they're still susceptible to doing human shit like fucking being jealous of each other and feeling inadequate. So they got to put other people down. So that's what they do a lot. It's a dog eat dog world in the special operations because think about it, like you're talking about the guys that work to get to that level, they got to have an extreme amount of a commitment and ambition. And those guys are used to being good at everything. So when you get to a group or in an environment where everybody's good at shit, it's almost natural for if you're not one of those guys that plays up to par, you try to bring people down, right, to make yourself feel more adequate in that environment or in that surrounding. So there's a lot of that can be unhealthy, even though I think me and you are joking in a fun way.
yeah,
A lot of people within the military, some of them just straight up hate. Like I know Carl got a lot of shit, and I think some people think bad about me just for being so prominent on social media and whatnot nowadays because of the quiet professional background. But
hmm
I think you can expose yourself and be good for your business and be there for people without casting a dark shadow or dishonoring where you come from. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. And I don't think I ever made the hairstyle joke to him because I've, uh, I mean, I know we've joked around a little bit about something. I'm pretty sure, but I try not to razz him too much because the last time a guy razzed him, he like gave him the meanest glare, and I was just like,
Well, there's
it's,
always some truth to some of these little funny things we say. And
yeah,
SEALs do, I mean, they're a younger group
yeah.
in general, statistically, and they young guys and they work out and they look good and they got good looking hair. So I mean, shit, run it.
Do you think that works to their benefit having younger guys? Not the hair gel, but younger guys.
Well, it's a give and take. You know what I mean? They got younger guys, which will not break as easy and probably be more moldable from one perspective, but younger guys also just don't know as much, and they're probably going to make more young guy mistakes than more older, mature guys. So
Yeah,
I've worked with them, and the ones on the regular teams, like they're generally younger than what the average SF team is.
yeah.
And I mean, but it's the same as our X-ray program in SF. Like we had guys that come in that were young, and we were dealing with the same things with them. It was just guys that didn't have a lot of experience in the military in general, so they didn't understand some of the basic fundamental stuff as far as etiquette and what you can get away with, and then also tactics. Like they just didn't have enough time in the seat to know that stuff to a higher level. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you just work with it. But yeah, they're generally younger than SF guys, but you can work with them. I mean, a good SF guy will take people in like that, and we'll find what they bring to the table that's valuable, and we'll exploit that, and then whatever they're not so good at, and then we'll manage that.
Yeah.
And so it's just talent management in general.
Now, just out of curiosity, what were people giving Carl crap about? And you crap about? I mean,
Oh no, it's just people from our units or people from the same military background as us. Just don't approve necessarily of being so exposed on the internet and saying things and teaching people things, and they might consider that not a quiet professional.
so would that kind of be like the, because I've heard that before, like guys like when Neil, what's his face, the guy that supposedly, I'm saying supposedly because there's a lot of controversy about that, but the one that supposedly killed Osama bin Laden.
well, well, I think yeah, some of the people give him slack about that, but it's also the some of his stuff, from what I've seen anyway, is based off of his personality and his brashness, and I think that doesn't go over well with people, you know. Like,
Yeah.
so it ain't so much that he's out there; it's more so the way he portrays it, his popularity and his place. But I don't know him that well, and I'm just seeing what people say. But
Yeah.
Carl, in specific, well, he was a little ahead of his time as far as being big on YouTube. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't as common when Carl first started being on YouTube,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah. He actually talked about that, I think, in one of the lives where he was going to do like triple canopy or tier one or something like that. And then I think you were going to do it, or he was saying something about how you were going to do something, and then he was going to end up doing that. And then I don't remember exactly what that story was. I don't remember, but he brought you up in it. But he was talking about how he was going to, train, special forces guys, or maybe it was just all special operations, but through, I think it was tier one or something like that. And then he decided not to, and forgive me because I don't remember exactly everything he said, but then he decided, which his wife was happy about, that he was going to end up, making tactical riflemen so he could teach citizens, which I think also guys in the military give other guys crap for exposing stuff, but also I think teaching citizens, because they feel like we have no business doing that. Like Dakota Meyer, he's ripping guys for wearing plate carriers, and but yet then you got, guys such as yourself, Carl, Grand Thumb, and all of them, kind of being like, hey, this is actually what you need to be doing.
well, I mean, I don't like to look at us as an exclusive group, but I think some people, because their identity is tied in with what makes them popular, which their military background or whatever, sometimes they want to protect that exclusive group they feel they're a part of. You know what I mean? So they want to be able to hold that over people. So that protects them essentially. They're vulnerable part of them.
Yeah.
So I don't see why you wouldn't want. I mean, of course, I don't want people doing dumb shit, and I don't want people doing ignorant shit that gets people hurt and it's unsafe. But if you're doing something, and even if I don't agree with it, like if you're dressing up and LARPing, live action role playing, and you enjoy doing that, and it's not hurt nothing, fucking do it. Like I want you to have that freedom. I want you. If you're a fucking, I mean, I could go on and on about this. If you're a fucking Nazi that hates fucking Jews and black people, I want you to have freedom of speech and say what the fuck you want to do.
Yeah.
Right? I'd rather know who you are than it be in secrecy. And I want you to have that freedom. I don't have the freedom to do that. But as long as it's not hurting anybody, or you're not putting things into action.
Yeah.
Like I also want the freedom to which we have to do something about somebody that tries to take mine or hurt mine. So if
Yeah.
you're working that stuff, as long as and a lot of people don't. I think military. A lot of the guys that I know that have gotten into training or working with civilians outside of the military, I think we're all closed-minded at first because we like look down on them, and they're mostly their base level is not at the level we consider a baseline level, and we're like,
Yeah.
man, these guys are fucking, they suck or whatever. Well, you got to understand, like I give them the benefit of the doubt. I understand that they didn't spend 60 days straight shooting thousands of rounds a fucking day, basically getting fed through a fire hose of fucking round shooting bullets out of a gun that forced them to learn something, like
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have the foundations that I have. I was
Yeah.
forced to go through some of that stuff just because of what I was a part of, right? And I'm thankful for
Mhm.
that. And I got to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're like, all right, you didn't have all that time. So that means that I got to just be better at getting you information and helping explain things in a shorter amount of time. I got to be more efficient here. I can't just throw bullets at you with the endless amount of money that the government has for you to get trained. I got to get as much quality into this short period of time as I can, right? And give you a good
Yeah.
understanding of why, not just give you reps. Because 2 days, I mean, my longest classes are about 2 days. I can't get anybody at a super high level within 2 days unless they already had a good foundation.
Yeah.
So I look at it like I want to give them as much information as I can and tell them the why so they understand on their own. So it's not just me saying, hey, Z said do this. It's, hey, Z said consider this and get your thoughts together on that. And now and now you can take that knowledge and go apply that in your own training and see where you need to go with this stuff, right? So I think military guys are just closed minded in general when it comes to that stuff. They want to treat people as if they're dumb. And I know that's the easy way to go about it, but it's just, I look at it very objectively like, hey, why would I expect a person to know a whole lot about something that they haven't had a lot of time doing? Right? It's like expecting a baby to come out walking and talking when they're born. Like, why would I expect that? They've never done that before.
Yeah.
So
Here's something else I was just thinking about. That's kind of related to this is there also seems to be and I guess it's not necessarily everything, but I think also a lot of guys in the military have a problem with other guys from the military profiting off their background, off their experience. I mean, like like with books and all this other stuff. I mean,
yeah,
is that really? I mean, I don't have an opinion on it because I don't. I guess I can't see it from your perspective because I've never been in the military. So I don't.
mm.
I guess explain. Yeah.
I think some people, again, there's that jealousy thing in there. There's people that hate. Hating's a common thing, like I said, but also just the way people go about it. Like it's like this. Like there's honorable ways to do things and there's dishonorable ways, and I think sometimes even if you're an honorable person, if you feel like it's not that big a deal and you're standing to make a lot of money, then you would do things that are maybe not seem super honorable, but I ain't really hurting anybody, right? So
Yeah.
I can understand that, especially if you need money or the dollar signs are big enough, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
But I think what some people do is they take advantage of the ignorance of the masses, right? So it's kind of the same thing as marketing in general. Marketing in general
Yeah.
for the masses is, I mean, these big corporations that sell all this fucking cool shit, cereal, whatever, cars, they take advantage of how ignorant people are, right? And they sell you a bunch of shit, but it's kind of like it's it's not wrong necessarily according to the
Yeah.
standards or relative to what their normal business looks like.
Because it's
It's
not like
just
stolen valor, right? Where guys
yeah,
that were infantry were saying they're SF and or like that
yeah,
Detroit guy, the one that claims to be have experience and he has no idea what he's doing and all
right.
that.
Yeah, so it's not technically wrong. It's just in my eyes, some of it's dishonorable because it goes against my code that I have in me, which is maybe I didn't know years ago, but I've come to know is that no matter what I've done, like every human's capable of doing what I've done. Every
Yeah.
human's capable of doing what anybody's done, right? It's just about how much effort you put in and how do you create opportunity, right? So I don't look at I try not to judge others by the classes, those informal, classes that people put people in,
Yeah.
right? So what I think that a lot of guys do is they try to sell you the bullshit, knowing that people are ignorant and will go for, hey, special forces, fucking ninja, and they will assume that you know everything under the sun if you put that tagline in there, right? So they'll come a running. So when people capitalize on that to the and continue to allow people to be ignorant, to me that becomes an issue, right? But at the same time, if that's what sells, and if I'm telling you just objectively, hey, I was in special forces or whatever, right, and that gets my foot in the door and gives me the benefit of the doubt as far as uh, gaining trust from you. All right, as long as I do you right, I can use that to get my foot in the door. So maybe that calms you down, and you give me a little more listen than others. That's just logically a smart way to do things. Like whatever is valuable, whatever your value is, you want people to know that, hey, this is my value. But then when you go beyond that and you tell people wrong things, or you don't provide the services that you advertise because you're just going off of what your credentials are, what your title is, and you just feed them a bunch of bullshit and act tough and give them treat them like shit and not really teach them anything. That's when you start crossing that line where you're kind of being disgraceful.
Yeah.
You're just
Because
relying off of the trust that they gave you based off your credentials to get the money, and you're not really providing the value that you should.
yeah, because I think there was a couple guys in recent memory that claimed to be SF and stuff like that, and it turns out that they were nowhere near, and they got exposed and stuff like that, and people got mad about it. And you know, I wonder if there's a way to prevent that, because I mean, there's also like the case, this is a supposed. I don't know how true this is, but this is what I've heard from fairly reliable sources that, like, for instance, Tulane, like the belt that he came out with was actually an idea of one of his buddies in SF that, or I think he was CAG too. He doesn't really talk about it, but that was actually someone else's idea, and then he got out and capitalized on it, and he creates this
Mm-hmm.
persona that he's like this ninja warrior, and I've talked to guys that have been around him. They say he gives off a weird vibe, like doesn't make him feel comfortable. And it's stuff like that I think is can hurt things. Guys that lie, but then also guys that maybe steal to get advantage, but then also create this culture about them that's way bigger. Kind of like what we've been talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like at
Well,
some point, we need to, in the gun industry, I think we need to encourage, you know, and I'm saying we as a whole, because I know you do this and stuff like that, is, because there's like a big stigma on citizens, teaching things, like, oh, you're never in the military, so you can't teach anything. To a point, sure. Like it's really hard as a person that's never been in the military to teach about breaching a door in Afghanistan, right? When you never did it. But you could, but I'm sure there's some value, and even like, and maybe this is an opinion I'd like to get of yours is, like, let's say a citizen never been in the military goes through tactics classes and gets really good and gets kind of get that thumbs up. What's wrong with them necessarily transferring that information? Maybe not to profit off it, but like, do you get what
I
I'm
think,
saying?
yeah. I mean, I know that there's always a vanishing point, a horizon that we can reach each individual, like based off your experience, your competency, right? Your potential, whatever. We all got a vanishing point. Like you can only go so far. You got a limit.
Sure.
Like how basically you can meet your max potential
Hmm.
in general as it pertains to knowing subjects and being able to communicate those subjects well and work with people. I think you always get to that point. I think that there, without particular or specific experience, like there will be something missing as far as what you can add to the context of the tactics or strategies, right? but you can learn that stuff. It's just you won't know it as well if you didn't feel it and you wasn't traumatized. I use the word traumatized a lot, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I feel like, you know, trauma really makes
Conditioning.
lessons. Yeah, it's conditioning. It really makes lessons stick home, you know,
Yeah.
when you're traumatized by these things. So sometimes to a fault. But I think civilians teaching in general, like if we break down subjects in an objective way, like competency and preparation, like one of my buddies explained to me, competency is anybody can teach that. If you're competent at working a gun and using the gun to be accurate, and you can add stuff like physical activity and still be accurate and run that gun without being unsafe, make it do what you want it to do, like that's a competency. Like anybody should be able to teach that as long as you have those skills and you know what it takes.
Yeah.
Even if you're not super like like me, I consider myself competent, but I'm not the best at running a gun by far. Like you look at people that run guns all the fucking time and they're really fucking good. But I'm super confident. I know what it takes to make the gun run. I know what it takes to get that stuff, and I know, you know, what goes into it to create that competency. And then obviously the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think competency wise, like why wouldn't a civilian be able to teach? Like you just, and then you could also add in context, like, hey, based off of this story or this whatever, like I understand that these lessons are important because of ABC or whatever. Like I don't see a problem in that personally.
What about
Um,
like
don't misrepresent yourself, obviously,
yeah.
but
Let's say there's a guy hypothetically that wanted to teach, like urban tactics in a context that is appropriate for that person. Never been in the military, but to put in the effort and the time and induce themselves to all different kinds of stresses and all this kind of stuff. Would you say, as a former SF guy, would you see a problem with that? Because he's not
mm,
claiming to be military, he's not claiming to know all this stuff, but he's like, hey, I have mastered one man room clearing in houses in America. I have some value here. Would you say there's a problem with that?
mm, I would be. I don't say it's a problem. No, no problem. I would just, as far as me being a student, like from the perspective of a student looking for somebody that has knowledge, I would give everybody a chance. Like if I seen what they were laying out, like I can watch guys and what videos where they say certain things or they talk about certain things. I can kind of tell if if they have an understanding that I think is a good level of understanding. You know what I mean? So if they
You
were
kind of cut out
vetted,
a little bit. Can you start
oh
over? Sorry about that.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. So you asked me about what I think about the civilian doing something like that. I was saying that I don't think there's a problem with that. I think just objectively, I would be looking at them to see what their level of knowledge is,
Hmm.
right? And if you didn't have anything better, right, why would I not trust what they're saying? And I would want them to. I think the, so. It's like this: like if I wrote a book or I wrote a paper,
Hmm.
right, an academic essay of some sort, I have to list my resources, and they got to be vetted sources that I've used, right? I have to
Hmm.
like put that stuff down so they can kind of see that I didn't get this shit from Google. I got vetted sources. I got peer reviewed articles that I, whatever, that I fucking got this information from
Yeah.
that we consider canon, right? So the same thing with instructors. Like I want to know kind of where you get your information from. But that being said, what's considered are peer reviewed articles and sources is that's what people give me the benefit of the doubt as far as my background, me just saying I did this, which
Yeah.
that can be misleading too, because just because I was whatever in the military doesn't mean I know everything about every subject. And then plus is depending on what my experience was in the military, was I actually doing that said thing? Like I
Yeah.
teach pistol right now. I teach a lot of pistol. I've never shot anybody with a pistol. I've never been in a pistol gunfight. You
Yeah.
know, I never have. Like,
Yeah.
so does that mean automatically mean that I can't fucking teach you how to fight with a pistol?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how it goes exactly, but I know similar things that go along and fall into that category and would help a person, right?
Yeah.
So I think anybody can teach anything if you've got all your ducks in a row. You've got good sources, right? You put a lot of
Yeah.
effort and time into finding out what is good information, what is bad information, and you stay away from absolutes, right? So I
Yeah.
don't say absolute anything. Like I don't say
Yeah.
you absolutely have to do it my way. That guy's absolutely wrong. The only time I, you know, get near the line of absolute is when we're talking about safety. Like you got to fucking do this. You must do this in my class. I don't give a fuck what you know or what you don't know. Finger off the trigger, manage your muzzle at all times, things like that,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I
So,
think, yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things because, because there was a time in the military even where there was instructors that taught stuff, even tactics, and they never saw the theater of war, right? And it's kind
right,
of one of those things where if that could be done, why can't a citizen do the same thing? As long as they're not claiming, because I guess my whole point of saying all that is we need to get rid of stigmas. We need to get rid of all
yeah.
this bull crap um that doesn't
And
really
I say,
matter.
well, it's just a lot of judgment that's normal for humans, right? So people want to judge people based off of. I mean, this is the time of the meme. The meme is an idea or a stance on something without any background. It's just a fucking meme, and you can
Yeah.
if you make a meme about somebody and they think it's funny enough in their mind, in the back of their mind, they're kind of thinking that summarizes that person. Like, and
Right.
that's wrong. The internet has taken away some of that interpersonal vetting of people that needs to take place. You're just assuming people are a certain way based off of some snapshot of their fucking life or character or personality.
Yeah.
And that's what fucking is normal. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the stigma, I think you take everybody at face value. Go see what they're about. And I don't care what their persona says or what you feel that they're fucking the way that they market themselves or the color of their fucking name when they make a thumbnail on YouTube. Like if that doesn't jive with you and you think that's lame, that doesn't mean they're lame. That doesn't mean they don't bring value to the
Yeah.
community. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I try to keep in mind. Like, hey, I'll take whatever you tell me or whatever I'm reading out there or whatever I'm getting from the internet and stuff. Like I'll
Yeah.
take that with a grain of salt and then I'll figure it out for myself. You know?
Yeah. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I guess no matter what, if the physical body of work is there and the knowledge is there, I mean, that's to me, I'd rather deal with a citizen who's never saw combat in their life, who has the physical capability of sound doctrine on something over, over a guy that was in the military that was a cook, right?
Right.
Or I guess a term that you'd be familiar with, a pogue. Someone that doesn't that it's.
Well,
I think
well,
that's the way how people need to look at it too, because I think it's very important on what can you physically give me, right?
well, good example. I was just talking to a team. I was a guest instructor at a mobility class the other day from our old unit, fifth group, and I
Yeah,
seen a couple of younger guys on the teams, and we were talking, and I made a reference about predictive versus reactive, and they recognized that reference, that terminology from Ben Stoger. I don't know if you know him, great shooter,
I think I
USPSA,
have. I think I know who
big
he is. Yeah,
big time instructor. He's all over the internet. He's kind of a polarizing individual, some might say, but um, I watch a lot of his stuff, and I try to glean some of that his explanations about things and the way he's demonstrating marksmanship to guys. Like I want to be a better instructor in general. It's not just about, and he's not no military background and not even like what you might consider like a tough tactical looking dude or anything. He's just a good ass shooter, and he talks about things that make you very competent at shooting and the things that are relative to that. And if I'm teaching people shooting, it's not just about the context of fighting for your life or the self defense or defending others. That is part of it, obviously, if that's why you carry your gun and what you intend to do with it. But like marksmanship is marksmanship. Line the gun up and don't move it when you press the trigger and do
yeah,
that efficiently, quickly, relative to what your goal is, right? So, like, I go use guys like that, and I'll tell anybody, like, I learn stuff from them. I'm continuing to learn, right? And how do I take that and apply that to tactics? I tell people that, hey, the better your system is, the more unconscious systems you have in place. Like, I can unconsciously align my pistol and execute what I deem marksmanship, acceptable marksmanship for what I'm doing. I, the more bandwidth I'll have to face or to pay attention to whatever's going on in my environment and the other things that are involved in a chaotic environment that might
Yeah.
be a self-defense situation or combat or whatever. Like,
Right.
so yeah, I want you to be super good at fucking shooting, have good systems, and have something that's reliable, repeatable, robust system that you can call upon without having to think about it. So I can have the bandwidth to think about all the other things. So why wouldn't I want that? And if people give civilians shit for teaching that, then and I think they're ignorant. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
just maybe they needed to open their mind a little bit more.
Yeah, because I think Lucas Botkin, you know who that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he gets the most crap because people all the time are like, "Oh, you never taught SF guys, all this stuff. Like you never did all this stuff." And if I remember right, I was working I at one of the gun ranges I worked at. I worked with the Green Beret, and I'm pretty sure that they use competition shooters to teach shooting because you wouldn't get a postman to teach shooting, right? You wouldn't get a cook to teach shooting. If you want to be the best at shooting, like you said, you get a guy that has put so many rounds down range that he could do it blindfolded with a mirror, back
Right.
behind, gangster style, and hit target every time,
For
right?
sure.
It's like, why would I go to Z's class to be more capable, right? I want to be able to understand these things, that you offer, because Jimmy John over here doesn't offer that, but he does offer this.
Right.
And I just,
Yeah. There's different value provided. Like, um, I think they definitely have their place. Like, vet the people, and if they got good information that pertains to the specific subject that you're trying to work on, like, it doesn't matter their background as long as the proof is in the pudding. You
no,
see the results, you getting the good information, you're able to apply it, and it works to the end that you desire. Like, we don't have to separate people
no,
based off of military background or not. Only way I tie it in, I talk about, how movement is important, how, you have to be able to react to certain things but your system helps you be reactive in a predictive way, if that makes sense, right? So if I got built-in systems where my feet move a certain way and I stay athletic and I'm prepared to, and the better I am at not having to think about the marksmanship portion or the safety of my gun as I carry my gun and move it around, I don't have to think about, where is it pointing necessarily. It becomes natural because I'm paying attention to that stuff at some unconscious level. Like,
yeah,
that gives me better ability to pay attention to what's important, which
yeah,
is the entirety of the situation. So we talk about that, but I just use my experience really to confirm with them that it is necessary to have these good systems in place, and that you're not going to have the bandwidth to focus on everything if there's a chaotic moment happening. If you don't have good marksmanship already, it's not going to happen, right? You got to have that programmed already. If you don't have good physical ability, right, when your heart rate goes up involuntarily, like, you better be able to withstand and keep plugging along for whatever the fight involves, right? So we
yeah,
just talk about that stuff, and I just try to bring it home to them in the context of my experience in combat and what I've done, right?
yeah,
But it's more so an advocate of people that don't might not know that portion of it, but know the competency side, right? And so I'm telling you, hey, your competency needs to be spot on. Like, I want you to be super good and be very reliable with your abilities, right? You ain't got to be the best in the world like Ben Stoker or JJ Akaza or any of those guys, but being real good is going to definitely help you. Like,
yeah.
I want to be as good as I can. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? As good as I can relatively get for my amount of money and time and effort that I can put in with my daily life. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, do you have any more time, or do you need to run?
I probably need to get off here. I gotta go pick up my daughter from work here shortly.
All right.
It'll take me about 30 minutes to get there.
Okay. I guess let me ask you one more question then before you run
All
off.
right. All right.
Have you heard about that new movie that Jake Gyllenhaal is doing?
Oh, the Roadhouse remake, right?
No, it's one
Oh,
where
Brokeback 2, Brokeback Mountain.
oh yeah. No, I what's funny is I did not realize he did that till someone told me. I was like, because I never saw it because I don't care to watch things like that. Like I've never seen Deliverance because I don't like banjos and I don't like the dark side of that movie that
Yeah.
but no, it's I think we're I think he was like a former. He plays a guy that was like a former SF. No, he was a former TACP or former SF or something like that. That it's not super clear. And the whole movie is about him going back to rescue his interpreter. But it's
Oh,
not
wow.
like yeah, it's not like what Tim Kennedy and them did. Like he's got kit on, he's armed and all that stuff, and he goes back and rescues him and he does it because I guess while he was in Afghanistan or wherever the setting was, his interpreter rescued him. So he's like,
No,
so I didn't know
I
if you
hadn't
heard
seen
about it
that.
or not.
No, the last, I mean, you said Jake Gyllenhaal, and I was thinking about like the UFC this weekend. He did some kind of promo, or they filmed a portion of a scene from the movie during the UFC because it
Mhm.
involves being in the UFC or something like that. That's what I thought
Yeah,
you was talking about.
yeah,
Because he
no,
came out and did like a weigh in. He was showing his muscles off. He looked like he was super built.
yeah.
I
But
got to
yeah,
check that one out, bro.
yeah. I don't know when it comes out, but I guess just look up if you're interested, look up the Jake Gyllenhaal
Oh, I will.
SF. Something. I don't know. Maybe you'll
It's so
enjoy it.
hard for
Maybe
me
you
to
won't.
watch military movies, though, man. It's so cringy to me because it's just, I don't know. It's just cringy to me sometimes. I guess that's how
Yeah,
anybody feels like if cops watch a cop movie or freaking you watch a movie about your particular subject matter expertise. Like, it's like, oh, you can shoot holes all through it. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, man, it's
yeah,
stupid. So
yeah.
hopefully it's not like that.
So that basically does ruin movies for you. Is
Yeah.
being having all the info. All right. Well, I'm gonna let you
Yeah, I'm
run.
critical.
Unfortunately, we had someone comment, but it's really late.
All right.
You
No
hang
worries.
on. Once I end the broadcast, hang on. I want to chat with you real quick, and then we'll get going. But anyway, thank you for watching in the future because you're obviously not watching now, and you definitely can't watch in the past. Anyway, tune in every Friday at 7:30 Central PM for our normal show. Um, which I wish I could have Z on all the time, but he's a busy guy doing a lot of cool guy stuff and being a
Regular
family
dad
man and all
stuff.
that. Yeah, and but I'm sure we'll have Z on again. Maybe I'll have Carl on. Maybe I'll get him to stay in the house and not leave. We'll see. But anyway, everyone have a good night. And plug your stuff real quick.
Oh, yeah. InstructorZ.com. Instructor Z on all the social media platforms that are relevant to me. Instructor ZEE. Holler at me, question me, whatever you want to do. I don't mind talking to people, so I'll be here.
All right. Thanks, everybody.